Wednesday, March 21st, 2012, and I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma, interviewing Dr. Robert Henrickson. Thank you for joining us today.
Glad to have the opportunity.
Let's begin by learning a little bit more about you. Could you tell me the year you were born and where you were born?
I was born in 1920 at Hays, Kansas. Grew up on a farm. You want me to go further?
Mm-hmm.
Grew up on a farm 15 miles southwest of Hays, Kansas, on a ranch, 3,600 acre ranch in the buffalo grass country.
And what did your parents do for a living?
Well, Dad was a rancher, and he had these 3,600 acres that allowed him to grow cattle and hogs, sheep and chickens, and everything that was an animal. And I was the third child in a family of 9. Have 2 sisters and myself still living. So you want me to just keep going?
Sure. Was your mom a housewife?
Mother was a housewife, and my grandmother on my dad's side lived with us. And her husband came over on the white ship line from Norway, and he died with pneumonia when Dad was only 6 years old. So there was Dad and Uncle Bill and Mary, the 3 children that lived on a farm south of Hays. And so when my grandmother and the 3 children then survived on this little farm until Dad was old enough to get married. And then they moved to another part of the area and began a farming program. From there, we went by horse and wagon north of Hays to south of Hays on this farm on the Smoky Hill River Basin. And that's where we children grew up.
What were some of your chores growing up?
Oh, the worst one was milking cows. Early in the morning when it was cold, and then late in the evening. But I always wanted to watch the program on the radio, and my chores was to get the fuel in to keep the house warm until I was old enough to milk the cows and do that. And then, since I was the youngest of the three of us, boys, why, I had to build a fire in the morning when we got up and get the house warmed up so that when we came back in and the rest of them got up, well, they could have a warm spot and get breakfast. So we had very little financial means at the time, and we burned coal when we had coal, and we picked up cow chips when we didn't have coal and used that for heating purposes.
Did you attend a country school?
I walked to school. It was 2.5 miles. We children all walked to school 2.5 miles and one way, and it was a 3-room country school. Didn't make any difference whether it was raining or snowing or what, we still walked. Then, as Dad accumulated enough money, he got us a horse and a buggy. And we would, my oldest brother, the three of me older children, the oldest brother then would harness the horse and take a little hay, and the school built a place for the horses so that we could stall the horse during the day and then take the horse and wagon or buggy and come back home in the evening. So that's when the girls came along in the family. Then we were able to ride in the buggy back and forth. But it was a 3-room schoolhouse. The third room was supposedly for high school. And we played basketball. That was the main thing. Two things at school was that during recess. One was drowning gophers and the other was playing basketball.
What would you do to the gophers?
Drowned them.
In what?
We would take buckets of water and pour it down the hole, and then the gopher would come out and we'd chase it. That was the amusement during the recess. Yeah. Everybody liked recess, so we could drown the gophers.
Do you remember the name of your country school?
It was Good Hope School. I say it was 2.5 miles from our place. I went there until it was time to go to high school, and then I went to Hayes. And Dad had an old Model T Ford, and he allowed me to drive that into Hayes to go to school.
Bigger school now.
A bigger school. And then after the first year, he arranged so that I would pick up 2 girls on the way. And so did that until I graduated. I spent 10 years in the 4-H club, and
what did you show? Did you have a specialty area?
Well, yes. The only thing I really knew was livestock, and so the county agent came out from Hayes to help me learn how to show a steer. And as a result of that, then I won a scholarship from the Union Pacific Railroad, which went through Hayes and Ellis. And the scholarship then provided me the chance to go to Manhattan campus. So the second year then I went down to Manhattan for high school, or for college. So I finished high school at Hayes and then went on down to Manhattan.
Did you always think about attending college, or?
I always wanted an education. So when I finished high school, I asked Dad if I could go to college. And he said, sure, come on, get in the car and we'll go to town. So he went in, got me a job at Fort Hays State, milking cows by hand. And so that year I milked cows. The second year I took care of the sheep. And the third year I dressed chickens for the dorm. And that finished me off at Fort Hays. And then the scholarship let me go on down to Manhattan. And that was in 1942. I enlisted in the service, in the military. Mm-hmm. And because I could drive a tractor, the military said that I should go into the tank division. And so I ended up in the tanks, went off to Fort Riley, and from Fort Riley on down to Fort Knox, Kentucky, I guess it was, and proceeded in the tank division, learned to drive a tank, and became the commander, and I decided I didn't want to die in a tank. So you want all this? Mm-hmm. You do? Mm-hmm. I decided I didn't want to die in a tank, so I applied for the Air Force. And I was accepted to go into the Air Force. And started my Air Force training, and got as far as just starting to be a pilot. When the general says, we don't need any more pilots, we don't need it. So they gave me an option of being a paratroop, infantry paratroop, or to go into the engineers. And I thought, well, I don't want to jump out of a plane, so I'll go into the engineers. So I went in to be an Army engineer, and went through that training, finished, and then they sent me overseas, over to the Philippines, and from Manila I went to Leyte in the Philippines. Slept in a tent, and then they decided that my unit should, while we was there, we built airstrips. As an engineer, we built the airstrips so that the planes could land. So then they decided that we should go into Tokorozawa, Japan. And that was a big dirigible center, because they had lots of dirigibles in the early time. Well, we took over this great big building, which formerly was housed dirigible, and we used that as our location to have heavy engineering equipment like Caterpillar tractors and graders and so on. And our task was to build a strip so that our airplanes could land. And so that's what I did while I was in the service. I volunteered in 42 and stayed in until 48, 49, I guess it was. And came back home, but I did get married in 42, just before I went into the service. And came back home and immediately went to Manhattan, back to Manhattan, because I'd only finished 2 years of service, 2 years of college. And so I went back to school and was walking across I'd already enrolled in 18 hours. I was walking across the campus, and one of the old schoolmates stopped me and said, would you like to be on the meat judging team? And I said, I don't know. I know nothing about meat judging. Of course, I raised the animals and that sort of thing. But I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, come on. So he took me over to the area where the teacher was. And he said, yeah, we come on, and we need you to be on the team. He says, we'll teach you. That was the professor. He says, we'll teach you what to do. And so in the military, I had gone then from private on up to lieutenant. first lieutenant. And so I was able to write. So we would write reasons of why we judged this ham over the other ham. And so Professor McIntosh took us as a team of 4. Now, only 3 could judge in a contest, but there was 4 of it. Well, he trained me, along with the rest of them, but to be able to determine quality in these items, and then to be able to write reasons why. And I became a good writer of reasons, so that made it easier for me. Well, the first year we did well, and then on the second year, why, we went to the Chicago International, which you've heard about, in Chicago. And fortunately, I was able to win the highest individual score, 831 out of 900, I think, something like that. So they crowned me with a crowned lamb roast. You know what a crowned lamb roast is? Okay. They crowned me with that. And I became known as the international champion meat judger. So I went back home, went back to Manhattan, and finished college. And David McIntosh, then the professor, asked me to stay on and do a master's degree. So I did, and taught for 2 years and finished the master's degree with emphasis on microbiology. There went off to Morgantown, West Virginia, first job. Wife and I and a little baby went to Morgantown, West Virginia, and was there at a time when there was no housing, like there was in many places at that time. So the guy that hired me was had a big home, and so he let us, 3 of us, stay in his home so we could find a place on campus that had campus housing. Well, finally it came up. There was a little shack that the baby slept in the closet, and we had a small room, a small place. I proceeded to teach the meats work there, which was very meager, nothing very elaborate. And so the first year, I took the team of 3 to Chicago International, and we did a good job. I mean, we did well. Second year, we won the contest. Well, of course, that kind of news gave me the opportunity to go back to college and get a PhD. So the University of Missouri was in the process of building a whole new facility for food, and especially meat. So I was offered the opportunity to go back to the University of Missouri at Columbia and work on a PhD, which I accepted. And as completed that work, it was in 1956 that I was offered the opportunity to come down here by then, at that time, Glenn Bratcher. Glenn Bratcher was the department head. And So I came down here then in 1956. Well, it was in 42 that I enlisted in the service, and then it was 49 that I came back to start on the schoolwork, finish the schoolwork. But then I came down here in 56 and was given the charge of doing research and teaching. So I was 75% research and 25% teaching. I taught the animal science at the 4,000 level. Mm-hmm. I taught the veterinary students at the 4,000 level. And then I had to teach the hotel and restaurant students at the 4,000 level. Well, during my time there, I was offered a chance to go to Pennsylvania State University and other places, but I did go and visit Pennsylvania State, came home, decided didn't want to go back out east. So I stayed, and the research here at that time was very meager. And so I was charged with building a research program, which they didn't have a degree program here in our area, food area. So I had to write a program for a master's degree in food science. I wanted meat science, but Bob said no. He says we can't do that because then they'd want one in peanuts, and they'd want one in fruits, and they'd want one in there. So we're going to have to call it food science. I said, all right. So he had me write a program in food science. Well, that was fine. But then as I got graduate students going, I needed a PhD program. So he says, well, you write a PhD program, and I'll help you get it approved. Well, he gave me a microbiologist and a chemist, and he gave me this and that on the committee, and so I wrote a PhD program. And you had to have that if you were going to have a graduate program. You had to have a master's program and a PhD program, and so I did all of that. And the department was poor at that time; they didn't have money. So I proceeded to go out and get grants. Well, I was successful, and this caused the other department members to be a little bit jealous. I thought so. That they seemed to be jealous because they were not getting money outside. And so when I came in from Missouri and West Virginia, why, I asked to have technician. Well, in our department, they never heard of having technicians. Why do you want one? Well, I had to justify why I needed a technician. You know, I was doing research, and that was normal. So then I got that approved, and I said to the department head, I need to have white coats. These animal science people never heard of having white coats at the time. And so I finally got those approved so that we could wear white coats in the laboratory. Let's see, well, we proceeded, and I was fortunate and able to get grant money. So I ended up with something over $2 million in grant money over that period of time. And as I say, I think that made some of the members uneasy. And of course, then that caused a little friction because I had my own program, and the department members in nutrition and breeding and genetics, they thought that I should be supporting their program and instead of having my own, which was normal, but that's just the way it was. And you're getting my side of the story.
Understandable.
Okay. So I proceeded to do all of that and finished up, I guess, and retired in '86. And so when I retired in '86, I learned that the university did not keep track of anybody when they retired. Staff or faculty, they just dropped you off the roll. Well, I and my, whatever you might want to call it, I sat down and wrote the president a letter. And this was Boger, '86, I believe. Because Boger was out telling people that Oklahoma State is a great university. It has the best faculty. It has outstanding students, and it's just super, you know, all of that. And so I wrote him a letter and said in there that what makes a great university is how you treat the retirees. Well, 10 days later or so, Boggs called me on the phone and said, would you chair a committee to see if the faculty and staff would like to organize? I said, well, yes, I would, naturally. So he gave me a committee of Ken McCollum and Dick Younger, and she was a math teacher. She gave me those names and said, this is your committee to see if the retired faculty would like to organize. Well, we proceeded, and we had, I'd say at least 150 turn out for the first meeting in the Student Union building. And so I went back to Boggs, said, yeah, they want to organize. There was enough interested. And so he gave me another 5, made 10 members on a committee. And he says, now proceed to organize it. And so then I got somebody to write the bylaws, and I got somebody to do all the things that you need to organize. And we had money come in, so we developed money that we put into the foundation. So we started out with a little money, and it's still in the foundation, the money from the Emeriti. And let's see, well, we just proceeded to have meetings in the student union up on the 3rd floor. And so then I thought, well, it might be nice if we had coffee and donuts at our meeting. So I went to Rick Green down at the first Stillwater Bank, Rick Green. I said, I knew Rick. We were both in the Civic Club together. So I knew it. And I went down to see Rick and I said, would you help us with this, organize this group? Oh, sure, he said. So he gave us coffee and donuts every meeting. And we proceeded in 88, I guess it was, to keep the organization going, and got the people's names and had a thriving group going.
What would you do? Would you just have monthly meetings, or?
Well, of course, the committee was busy developing the bylaws, and I don't know what we did other than that we had meetings. But we did set up a traveling committee, somebody that wanted to arrange for us all to go traveling. We set up a bridge club. We set up an investment club. We had our dinner meetings, had somebody in charge of the dinner meetings, and we met in the old Home Economics building. That was fine. If you remember, they used to serve meals in that larger room. Well, that's where they allowed us to meet. We had to have a meeting place, and we had been meeting up on the third floor of the student union. So they gave us that area, because at that time they were getting ready to knock that building down anyway, and so we were the only ones using it. And we were using the dining and the kitchen and the dining area. The rest of it, as far as I know, wasn't being used, but it might have been. Well, we had to have potlucks. Even though we had a kitchen back there, we brought our own food in and had dinner. And, I don't know, great fellowship. Well, that went fine until they said, well, you can't meet here anymore because the pipes underneath were leaking, and it was condemned. So we had to find another place for our dinner meetings. Well, they says, try Bennett Hall. So we went over to Bennett Hall and looked around, and here was a little room area, and they decided to divide it off so we could have a meeting room, which was the size of that room, and we could have a kitchen area. And again, potluck. But Bennett Hall allowed us to prepare our food and then carry it down into a bigger area in there. Well, that worked out okay until the athletic department decided they needed that space. They needed the place where we were having our potluck dinners. And then the university served meals, what do you call it, catering. So they decided they wanted to take over our area for catering. And so that left us out. So then we had to hunt for another place. And they told us to go over to look at, they said go look at Mary Student Housing. So there was a building over in Mary Student Housing, and we went over there and had potluck meals in Mary Student. Well, that worked out until they got to jealousy and said that we were trying to take over their facility. That's what I interpreted. So then we had to go find another spot. And if you recall, out where married student housing, there's a nice building, and I don't know what it's called. So we went out there, and they were just great to have us there. Well, that lasted for a few years until they decided that we couldn't come in there and do potlucks. So we went to a hotel and restaurant, and we brought our potlucks into a hotel and restaurant for a while Baker O'Connor was there. But as soon as they hired a new director, he says, no, you can't have potluck in here. So we had to leave there. Now this is all the maritime. So we of course kept in contact with the administration, and they said, well, try Wilhelm Dining. So we went to Wilhelm Dining, and on this side, the students were using Wilhelm Dining. On this side, it was vacant. So they let us have that for a little while. And then they said, well, that's too much of a problem for us. We'll let you have it over here since you're meeting at night. Well, you can have this. Well, then we didn't have to do potluck anymore. They furnished, they cooked it. Well, all the while, I was in contact with the Alumni Association, and they would agree to have the Emeriti in the Alumni Association, and they did not want the staff, because the staff was involved with I don't know, another group that had liquor. We didn't have liquor. Mm-hmm. We didn't want liquor. So the Alumni Association didn't want liquor in their building. But we met in Wilhelm Dining then until the Alumni Association was built. And then Jerry Gill and Larry Schell. Larry was very outspoken about us moving in there. And of course Jerry agreed. And so when they finished, we moved in, and we had to have catering again. Well, that's when I arranged with the Klein company out of Perry to feed our group, which they still do today. And because Larry said you had to have somebody to cater it. Well, we investigated that and found that all these others were too expensive, and I don't know, faculty, in my opinion, faculty were chintzy. Don't use that word. Faculty had plenty of money, but they don't want to spend it.
Right.
And I think it's still that way today. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we did investigate all of the catering in town, and Klein's out of Perry was the best and cheapest, and it was good food. So I had arranged with them to do it, and they did, and they still do. Still are, the Emeriti are satisfied with the meal. Now the reason that the Alumni Association wanted us in, because that gave us an opportunity to meet people as they come in, and the Alumni Association benefited, which they still do. So they agreed to give us the space there by the elevator, which is a little meeting room and the kitchen and the office. You've seen that, yeah. Plus they agreed to give us half of the Click Dining Hall for meals once a month. And they were generous enough that we could do about anything, as long as we cleared it with them. Well, they give us the whole room free whenever we have a crowd, but when we don't have a crowd, we've had as many as 250. We've had many as 80. It depends a lot on the program and the weather and so forth. We were to give them our Emeriti to interact with people as they came in. We were to help with the games, be there to visit people that come in that we knew, former students and all that, which we do. And then we still help out stuffing envelopes. We once answer the phone part of the time, so that whoever's there at the main desk can go out for dinner. We do that. So the mutual agreement has worked out real well. Well, in 1988, we started thinking that we ought to have a retirement center. And so even then, we didn't know what we were doing, but we set up a group to start organizing for a retirement center. We first made contact with somebody out of Iowa. Anyway, I can't think of where up there, but anyway, he came down here and he got all excited and was going to build one for us. Well, we found out after so long a time that he didn't know what he was really doing, and we didn't trust him. So we lost money by buying him out. Told him we didn't want to work with him. Then we got somebody out of Chicago, and we had 2 groups out of Texas. Everybody wanted to come in and build a center that was assisted living, and then drop it on us after 5 years. And we wouldn't build anything but a complete retirement center, continuous care. That was, from the start, that's what we said they had to be. Well, out of the clear blue sky one day, we got a notice from a man in Florida, which turned out to be Milton Morris, who has agreed to give us the land out here on 19th and Range Road, and said that he would donate the land if we built a continuous retirement community. Well, we called it Whitewoods because the man that owned it, name was White, and he taught in agriculture, and so it was his land, and so we put Whitewoods Retirement Center. Well, every group that wanted to come in and build had trouble getting money. It needed $5 million to start. I couldn't find $5 million. We couldn't find $5 million. And then we hit the time for the economy, dropped off, and so it delayed. Well, finally, we made contact with Epworth Villa, just at the time that this new guy, John Howard, came in to be the CEO, graduate from Oklahoma State, interested, and he said, sure. He said, we'd like to. He took to his board and he said, we'd like to. So that then has developed now to where it's going to be Epworth living at the ranch. He wanted the word living in there, and of course it had to be Epworth, so Epworth living at the ranch. Well, the ranch didn't go exactly with the committee. So establishing a title, you know, that's always one of the big problems. So we could agree with Epworth and we could agree with living and at the ranch. That was a long way from White Woods Retirement Community. Well, we wanted it to be more than just OSU. So after thinking through the whole thing, the ranch was probably as good as anything we could come up with. So we agreed to stay with that. Epworth living at the ranch. So it's moving forward, and they established an office up there in our office in the Alumni Center, and they're in the process of getting people to commit to living there. Now, I don't know, did you have any questions about that?
Is there an estimated time to break ground?
Well, our thinking is that we should have a goal, and we've set goals, and when we reach those goals, we'll start. That's a way of not telling you when.
Well, it's interesting that y'all are doing that, because that's a trend we're seeing now with a lot of universities, is the retirement center concept popping up. Mm-hmm. Have y'all looked at other?
We've visited lots of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course we visited Epworth. We took a busload down. And then we visited there's another one or two down there that we visited. I went to Bloomington, Illinois, and visited theirs. I went to Washington State and visited theirs. Of course, we went over to Tulsa and visited some of them over there. So we visited a lot of them.
How's the interest been?
Very good, very good. I say John Howard and Epworth, has said that they're much further ahead of their normal development than, because we've done a lot of things already. We had approval from the city, we had land donated, we had many of the things that needed to be done was done. The hospital was behind the program. There's one thing that is always important, and that's a letter of need, certificate of need. Well, Epworth has been able to handle that part. Anybody that comes in has to get a certificate of need from the state. You understand that they don't want more than we need in the state, which makes sense. No, they're doing great, as far as I can tell. And he's speaking to the Rotary. He has spoken to the Rotary, and he's going to speak to the other civic clubs. He has submitted information to every church in this community, and that's quite a bunch. So I say we, are doing it. Other than that, I'd say it's going real well. You'll hear about it breaking ground not far off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what other things are the Emeriti involved with?
Well, of course, the travel is one of the big ones. Jack Stout. I started, Albert and my wife and I started the travel club. So we would arrange to people interested going to Branson every year for the Christmas program. And it was easy to get a bus load, anywhere from 45 or more. And so we would arrange with the motor coach company out of Oklahoma City, come up here, pick us up. He finally got to recognize you guys. They'd come up here, pick us up here, and take us to Branson and for 3 days, and then well, anyway, it worked out great for motor coach trips. We're still doing it. Matter of fact, we're going to go to motor coach, going to take maybe 2 bus loads over to the Crystal Bridge, developed by Walmart over there. Anyway, it's where Walmart grew up, and it's an art museum. They call it a Crystal Bridge. You'll have to see it. But we're going over there next week, I think it is. Anyway, it's coming up. Then they set up mystery trips. Take us anywhere there's something to see and do. And it's, the group likes to travel by motor coach. At least some of them do. Branson is one of the big destinations, but anywhere else that there's well, like we went down to Texas. Who's the big guy down there? Anyway, has a hotel, motel facility, and it's a fabulous place. So we went down there to see that, and anywhere there's something exciting to go see.
How many trips a year do y'all take?
Well, many as they can arrange, but then the other thing is that we've arranged to see things in Stillwater. Anytime we find something new to go see, well, he'll arrange a trip there, whether it's, we went out to see the research facilities out there by Votech. We've gone anywhere there's something in Stillwater to go and see new. We even toured the Wondatorium. We toured the facility right out here, the
Kicker,
yeah, we toured Kicker. We've toured the national standards, rug company.
So you go everywhere.
Wherever there's something to go see. So that has worked real well. The investment club is going well. It has 22 members, and we meet twice a month, buy and sell stocks. The purpose of it is to educate us. It's not to make money, but it's to help us learn how to make money, we think. But it's a fun opportunity to get together, and everybody comes in with an idea that, boy, this is a good stock, we ought to buy it. And you've got to get 22 people to agree. So we met Monday. We met Monday, this Monday, and I told Ken Bell, he's the chair right now, I told Ken when we first walked in, I said, now if we sell 3 stocks today, you'll have a good meeting. Well, he ended up selling 3 and bought 1.
Do you buy and sell as a group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to get all of them to agree, or at least a majority of them to agree. So, anyway.
Sell.
Yeah. But we sold 3 yesterday and Monday. Yeah. But back to the research work. I told you a little bit about this teaching. Mm-hmm. Well, since the department didn't have money, or they thought they weren't allocated a lot in the animal science department for each of the faculty, then it became important to go out and find funds. And before I came, there was very little of that done. They just spent whatever they had, and of course they had all kinds of livestock. They had livestock poor, and the faculty did whatever they could with what money they had, and it wasn't. I guess it wasn't known, or wasn't encouraged a lot to go out and get funding. Most of them didn't do it. Well, when I came in the department, I said, well, what's the department program? What are guidelines do you have for me as a new person? I couldn't find any. And so I said to myself, I'll just go out and get my own money. Well, I did that. And I was fortunate enough to find places that had money for this kind of a project or that kind of a project. The first one was to develop pizza.
Really?
Yeah. Well, pizza was already here.
Right. For what purpose?
Well, it was supposed to, from Norman, Oklahoma, the guy was producing pork pizza. Mm-hmm. And he was making it for, what's the pizza companies here in town? Can you think of one?
Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut. Yeah, Pizza Hut. He was making pork pizza. He was making the meat for the pizza, selling at the Pizza Hut. And he was looking for ways to improve that. So he gave me money. And so we started. I don't know whether we helped him or anything, but we did that. Plus trying to start the research program of graduate students and PhD students. Did that, and then I went to the military, and can't think of what the group was in Chicago, but anyway, that was the purpose, to radiate it and see if it was storable and had good flavor and all that sort of thing.
Were you concerned about if it was safe to eat, or?
That to me wasn't a problem, because I had already eaten lots of radiation in the military, in my military career. So I prepared the meat, sent it to Idaho Falls, Idaho, by airplane, they radiated it, and then they sent it back to me. And then it became our research obligation to determine what was the flavor, what was the sanitation, what was the texture, and did it preserve it? Well, different levels of radiation was important. The first batch came back smelling like wet dog. So we had to get different levels of radiation treatment, and we knew about what level we should have. But anyway, that was, if you had too much radiation, it didn't taste good, didn't smell good. So we then got it to where it was acceptable, and I don't know, went through the whole series, and then the military took it over, and they were to determine whether it could be utilized in the rations. Compared that with dehydration. So you had dehydrated food and you had radiated food. The radiated food was fresh, but the dehydrated food was, and it had to be acceptable at 110 degrees heat, or minus 30, minus 100 too. So the military had requirements for its acceptability in any temperature range. Well, it was their obligation to determine that. We just decided that what level was good for them to try out and use. So that was one project. Had another project that had to do with tenderness of the meat. The industry was in the process of developing tools for measuring tenderness. So they gave me, the industry that made the tools gave me various tools to test. Armour and Company gave me one and said, try it out. Well, the standard was a Warner Braunsler shear machine, and Armour had another one that just poked holes in it. And so much of the research had to do with developing tenderness of animals that are on different rations and different genetic makeup and that sort of thing. From there we went to, I had the idea that he's checking you out now. He loves to play. There I went to, I had an idea all the way from the start that I wanted to do something on hot boning. Well, it was a time, the time in that 30-some years that energy became important. Well, slaughtering an animal, cooling it down, was taking, plus refrigeration, was utilizing tremendous amount of energy. And the energy became a thing of importance at that time. So I decided that we should slaughter the animal, take all the bone out of it, and cool only that which you're take off the excess fat, cool only that which is edible. Because that was going to be a conservation of energy. Well, it proved out naturally if you were cooling only the main part, and so determined how much energy did you save, and how much, what was the cost. So we did that. And then it became important to take each one of those muscles off of the beef carcass. Well, I started with pork first, but then everybody wanted to go to beef because that was the big thing. And Oklahoma was beef. So they got me to work on beef, and Armour and Company supported me to anything I wanted. And so I proceeded to take the muscles off of the beef carcass one by one. Well, that served energy. So then it became important to establish the tenderness of each of those muscles, because some muscles were more tender than others. And if you could utilize more of it for steak instead of ground beef, the better. It leads to greater economy. So that that I called hot boning, and then in addition to that was determining the tenderness of each of the muscles. I never did get it all finished, but we did all we could do in the time.
How were your facilities back then? How did they change?
Because I brought in so much funding, the department head allowed me to build facilities. We didn't have them. So I had to build facilities in the then what was called the meat laboratory. The meat laboratory was set up and designed to furnish meat for the dormitories. When I came, that was the function and purpose. So all the laboratory was used for that purpose, and I then had to utilize the lower level, which was underground, for research laboratory. When I came, there wasn't even an office. So they were using the part that I got as the office for the knife sharpening room. And so we had to clean it up, and gave me an office, and we were able to petition it off, so I had the secretary out here and I had my office inside. Department head came along, he says, "You don't even have a place to hang your coat." And I said, "No." So he bought me a coat hanger. But that's the way we started, sort of meager. Where did I leave you? Oh, so we went from hot boning and energy conservation and that whole area. I was able to get funding to do all that with. And so then when I retired in '86, I said to Bob Henrickson, I said, "I'd like to stay on and fund my own research." And half-time. He said, "No." He said, "No, we can't do that." And the reason was that he wanted to have another full-time person, which I understood. If I took a half-time, then he could only hire a half-time person. So then I left and proceeded to continue to consult. And so I this hot boning and energy conservation caught the attention of the International Association of Refrigerated Warehouses. Now, you get the idea who that is. U.S. cold storage, people that have all the cold storages around the world. And there are offices in New York at the time. Well, the cold storage warehouses was housing all the frozen and refrigerated food items. Meat, poultry, and seafood was a big item. If it came in from overseas, it had to go into cold storage. Well, as I say, the work I was doing caught the attention of them, and so they asked me to be their advisor, consultant for the industry. I was naive when I said sure. Fortunately, it turned out great. They would allow me to go to their annual meeting once a year, vacation, to the best places in the country and meet with them. Now, these are the big warehouses all around, started out all around the United States. And then I would support them in writing up reports that they would need for one thing or another. But this gave me anyway from 3 to 5 day vacation every year with Alberta. And we could go and enjoy the area, and everything was free once a year. Well, I stayed with them, I don't know, 20-some years. I've forgotten. I have to go look.
That's a long time.
Long time. So free vacation every year, best in the country. This year they're going back out to I can't think of it. But anyway, but I decided when I was 85 or 86 years old, I didn't need to do that anymore. And then it was getting tough for Alberta. She couldn't go. So I quit, but they still keep me on the list. I'm an emeritus with them.
Well, when you look back on your career, do you have some just career highlights that come to mind?
Oh, everything was a joy, really. But this consulting was, I suppose, the highlight of our life because it allowed us to vacation with the upper class, I suppose. A highlight? Yeah, there's one. One of my graduate students finished his PhD. He went off to work for the industry, and he was given a job of traveling a lot, so he accumulated travel. What do you call them? You got points.
The frequent flyer miles.
Frequent flyer. Yeah. He accumulated lots of frequent flyer miles. So one day he called up. He says, "Dr. Bob, would you like to go somewhere anywhere in the world. I said, what's up? Well, he says, I'd like to send you anywhere in the world. I said, well, I'd like to go to, I'd already traveled to China, so I said, I'd like to go to New Zealand and Australia. He said, fine. So he says, tell me when you can go, and I told him. So he set up for me to go to, Albert and I both, to go to Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji on the way back. So he threw in also the use of the hotel. So we flew to New Zealand, and we took a car and we drove it around, all the way around New Zealand. Stopped at motels in the evening, and the deal was to, they gave us a bottle of milk and a key, every hotel. And a part of that was that I had a project with the New Zealand Milk Company. I didn't tell you about. But anyway, they gave us a bottle of milk, and we toured all of New Zealand, and then went to Australia, and we spent so much time that visiting the various places there, and it happened to be there just at the time when they were having a parade, so I walked in the parade with them. And so we decided that we needed to go to this South Island, the south part of it. That's New Zealand. Wait a minute. Anyway, I'm kind of don't have it all quite right, but I guess it's the South Island of New Zealand, isn't there?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and I decided that I wanted to visit the. At the time, New Zealand lamb was being exported. So I said, I'd like to go see that. So they took me there to see their exporting the lamb. And then I told him, I said, well, I'd like to see how the kiwis grow. So they took me to the kiwi farm, showed me the kiwi. And I said, could we visit one of your apple industries? And so they showed me that, and took me to the wine industry, and had to give me a bushel half bushel apples and some wine to carry back. Well, I couldn't do that, but then they gave it to us. But the hotel, we had the free hotel, we had free travel except for the car. We had visited part of Australia, sheep industry and wool industry. And on the way back, we went to Fiji, which was an experience. And you had to taste something that the chief of the Fiji people, it was a drink of some kind. So it was supposedly if they got in an argument, he would give them this drink to kind of quiet them down, like alcohol. And so I had to taste that. Albert wouldn't taste it. But the ideal was that he gave us this free trip, and I'd say that was one of the highlights.
Not a bad deal.
No, all free.
Well, looking at the Emeriti Association, where do you hope, looking towards the future, where do you hope it to go?
Well, of course, if and when this Emeriti retirement center materialized. I think that'll be a big achievement. I would like to see the Emeriti Association now involving the staff, which it does and will, because liquor is not a problem anymore. I'm hoping that it would develop even more so in other programs. I'd like to see, it could have a library, it could have a central meeting place for people to go and have coffee and donuts in the morning. At the present time, they go to McDonald's, they go to wherever, which is all right, but I'd like to see it become a more gathering center in the future. The lady that was in charge of the Bridge Club, for example, died. So the Bridge Club died. But if somebody would take the leadership, there's a whole host of things that could be developed, all the way from craft to anything that would interest people. Well, of course, you're acquainted with the OLLI program. Well, it's going great, and it's providing a service. Well, that started through us. So it seems to me that there's ways that it could develop to people are living so much longer that there could be ways that it could be used as a assembling place, I guess. At one time we thought we ought to have a group that made business cards. But it takes somebody to lead and get that done. The travel club and the investment club, see, anything I think could go, then there's so many things that could go if somebody thought of it and took the leadership. That's the way I see it. I tried to establish a retirement laboratory or retirement library. I don't know where one could go with that, but medical facility in a library. I think it could go.
I think if the facility works itself out, there's a lot of things you could probably do with that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But as I visited the one out at Washington State, they had a big library, mm-hmm. but they also had a big office for people to come in and, they could use the computer, they could use the whatever facilities that they had. And they had a much bigger program than we ever have at the present time. They had a paid person and a couple of others that were there to help develop the program. So by looking at what others are doing around the country, you get to start something larger than what we have. But our facility is not big enough to do all that.
Mm-hmm. And you probably need a buy-in from not only the Emeriti, but also the university as well.
Yes. Now I will say that I was able to get the provost to support us in well, I suppose as best as they could, mm-hmm. because when I wanted to go visit one of the other colleges, they always would pay my way. And see, there is an association of retirees of all, not all of them, but part of the colleges have a meeting once a year. So they paid, Boggs paid my way to go to every year, to go to the meeting. Hmm. And so as far as I know, they're still doing that. Encouraged us to be part of the organization. But I did try to get it as a line item in the budget. I wasn't successful. They would support the association, but they never would put it in as a line item in the budget.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess there must have been a reason, but...
Well, when we started, you were telling me about moving around and told me when you went to West Virginia, you had a little baby. Tell me about your kids. Well,
came back from the service, and let's see, she was born, oldest daughter was born in 49, and we took off, went West Virginia, and that was Morgantown, West Virginia. That's coal country. And she was used to wearing white dresses, and the coal dust was everywhere. I told you we didn't have housing, and finally, at about Christmas time, after the first year, why a new home that was just built came into being, and so I was able to get that rented, and bought my wife a washing machine for Christmas. And she didn't think that was a very good Christmas present. And I told you I took the team up and we did well. And then, let's see, I got to go back to Columbia, Missouri, and our son was born. And then we came down here and we found another daughter. So I have 3 children, and Sandra lives over here at Perry, has since retired. She got a degree in art, a degree in fine art, and a degree in some other art. And then she went and took a course with John Tate, which was in wood art. I don't know, you haven't seen that yet, but wood art. And they opened a store over in Perry, and proceeded to spend 30 years making furniture and making anything out of wood. My son is over in Tulsa, and he went through the hotel and restaurant school and had a restaurant over there, one in one in Houston, and then he came up and opened one here in Tulsa. Retired and came in with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So he retired, and he's still treating himself for Hodgkin's lymphoma. My oldest daughter was in school here, and then decided she wanted to go to Austin, Texas. So she went off down to Austin, and the interesting part of her career is that she started out wanting to be a veteran, a vet, and that lasted for a little while. Then she thought she wanted to be a nurse. That lasted a little while, and then she was going to be a doctor. And that didn't pan out, so she ended up being a special ed teacher. Got her first job up at North Dakota. Can't even think of the place. Anyway, she stayed up there for a number of years, and then came back down to Tulsa and taught at Oral Roberts and Northwestern, special ed teachers, and finally retired writing books. I think she's already completed 5 books. Present time, she's writing one on how to teach children to pray. It's written, but she's trying to get somebody to publicize it. So she's working through the churches to see if she can get them to utilize her book. And then, of course, Alberta went through a lot of health problems, and she died 2 years ago. Ever since, the kids decided that I had to have somebody to live with me, and so my son gave me Sandy here, Scooter. He raises Maine Coon cats. So that's how I got this guy. And he owns the place, and except that he can't get up there. But sometimes he forgets. So we get along pretty well. He doesn't know how to play too well, and he gets rambunctious, and he works on this hand. So I got me a leather glove. I put that leather glove on when I play with him anymore. Except yesterday, I didn't have the glove on, and he got me right there. But that's pretty much the family. The kids come over and see me quite often. Matter of fact, my oldest daughter is supposed to come over Thursday, and I have Gary, the son, had 2 girl children. Both are married. Chrissy's got 4 boys, so they're coming over to see me on Friday. 4 little boys. The last time they were here, the 8-year-old came in the front door, went out here, went back to my shed, picked up my snow shovel. He says, "Grandpa, can I have this?" I said, "What are you going to do with it?" "Well, I'm going to clean off the walks in the neighborhood and make money." I said, "Oh, sure, you can have it." The 6-year-old, he went off back there and he found a shovel, the long handle, and about that wide. He came in with that. His, "Grandpa, can I have this?" And I said, "Sure, you can have that." "What are you going to do with it?" well, I'm going to help Levi. Okay, they took those home, and so far there hadn't been enough snow to use them. So I'm waiting till I come over to see what they'll say about it. The other two girls that didn't have any children. Sherlyn was divorced. He turned out to be a dud long before she went up to North Dakota. Sandra and her husband had the store over there making furniture all the time. So they didn't have children.
Well, outside of the your involvement with the Emeriti Association, what else do you do to keep busy?
Well, I'm a 62-year member of the Kiwanis Club. So I go to Investment Club on Mondays, and I go to the Kiwanis Club on Tuesdays. Wednesday is my day to do woodwork. Thursday I help out at the feed people down at the Methodist Church. Saturday I get to do things in the shop, make items out of wood. So I got something every day to do.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. You want to see them?
I will once we wrap her up. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, a question I like to ask towards the tail end of an interview is, looking back on your life and thinking about all the students you touched and everybody you've been involved with your research, how do you want people to remember you?
Oh, as one who would listen to them, hope that I've guided their lives in the right direction, I guess. I do hear from many of them, graduate students. I had students from Turkey, I had students from Iran, I had students from Iraq, and Philippines, China, and I do hear from them. So they've been interested in keeping in contact. I have one that's calls me on my birthday. I have another one that was here and enjoyed his stay and went back to Iraq, and he calls and talks to me on the phone. He sent his son back over here to go to school. So I hope that I have helped them improve their lives somehow. Many of our own U.S. students, so I've had contact with a lot of outside, but also in the U.S. I hope they thought of me as being helpful in their life. And they've been very successful. Just like the one that paid my way to go on a trip. Mm-hmm. So I assume that they thought well.
Was there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't touched upon today?
Nothing that I can think of.
Well, we really appreciate your time and helping us preserve your work at the university and also give us some insight into the Emeriti Association.
Yeah, there's probably things I didn't touch on, but at least those were the most important.
Thank you for your time.
Very happy to. Very happy to.